Welcome to Good for Bitcoin, a weekly show recorded live every Friday, where we recap the top events of the week and talk about everything that is good for Bitcoin. If it's built on Bitcoin, then it's good for Bitcoin. Let's get started.
Content shared on this podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. It does not constitute financial, investment, or legal advice. The views and opinions expressed are those of the host and guests and do not reflect the official policy or position of any other agency, organization, or company. We encourage you to conduct your own research and consult with a qualified professional before making any financial decisions.
Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to Good for Bitcoin. Happy Friday. Have a couple special guests. Well, Kate, welcome back to the show. I guess you were here last week. I'm still...
Yeah.
And Shaylee normally is looking very cool, but today is looking especially cool with those sunglasses. Shaylee, hopefully you can hear us. Hopefully we can hear you. Welcome to the show. Okay, well, I think
we'll get Shaylee sorted.
Yeah, we're gonna get Shaylee back in a second here. But yeah, interesting week. Kate, I would love to hear from your neck of the woods how all this tariff news is being received. It's been a crazy week in macroeconomic land.
Yeah, it is very crazy. There's a lot of negative sentiment, which is tough because I love my fellow Americans, but there's just a lot of country pride going on. Everyone wants to support Canadian-made products. Made in Canada is a huge push going on here. So, yeah, it is kind of sad to see. There's like this animosity between two countries where trade has always flourished. I don't know. It's like the tariffs are just so widespread. Like every country is kind of experiencing this feeling, and I don't know. Who knows what's going to happen? So
yeah, it's pretty crazy. Looking at the fear and greed index, it's actually less bad than I expected it to be. To be honest, I thought it was just going to be totally zero because it feels like that's what it's been this week. But yeah, I mean, hopefully, it's the government's fighting, right? Not the people.
Yeah, that's so true.
So I don't know. Hopefully, the Canadians aren't too mad at American citizens. I didn't do anything. It wasn't me.
We'll get over it.
Yeah.
We'll get over it pretty quick. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, it's been definitely an interesting week. I think outside of all the craziness that's happening in, tariff land, it's been kind of a quiet week in crypto for the most part. I don't know, anything catch your eye this week that you found was particularly interesting, or I feel like it's been a little bit of a slow week.
Yeah, I think that's reflected in one of the things you wanted to talk about, which was the lack of transactions in the mempool. So sometimes I feel like the mempool is very indicative of like what's going on in the news. And so very quiet week indeed. And maybe you want to touch on that one now, but lowest amount of transactions in the mempool in over 2 years, I think.
Yeah, let's get into it. So this was 3 days ago. The mempool basically emptied, and it's a crazy visual of what the actual block looked like. So out of, this whole big square here, this whole big block, there was only 7 transactions in it, which is, it's just crazy. This one was, I think, mined by Foundry. So they still received, the subsidy, right? The 3.125 subsidy for each block that gets mined. But basically only received $5.91 in transaction fees as part of this block. So it was basically empty, which is, just pretty nuts. And when we look at mempool right now, it has filled up a little bit, which is nice. I actually checked this morning and there was just one block and it was like a pretty empty looking one. So we're sitting at 3 sats per VByte right now, which still isn't that much. But yeah, this morning there was only one block here, and now there's, how many? 7 pending blocks of transactions. But yeah, it's kind of sad. It's looking a little bleak. I feel like, the runes market, the ordinals market, all these markets have really been fueling, fees for quite some time. And, these markets are down, therefore transactions are down on Bitcoin overall, and it's just driving everything. So yeah, not a lot of activity on chain this week.
Time to consolidate your UTXOs, that's for sure.
Great time to consolidate UTXOs.
Can you guys hear me okay?
We can.
Yes, we can.
Welcome.
people are feeling the HODL mentality now, right? You're seeing these comparisons between gold and Bitcoin and how like Bitcoin has continued to kind of stay steady through this uncertain time with the US tariffs. So yeah, that's just my take on this.
Yeah, it's certainly a great time to hodl, I guess. Yeah, we posted this morning. S&P 500, I think, is down like 10% or even more than 10% this week. Bitcoin's still relatively flat or maybe slightly up. So yeah, it's been, a good sort of hedge against the volatility in the traditional markets that's been happening. Normally Bitcoin is the volatile one, but it's been kind of nice to have Bitcoin be flat for the most part this week. But yeah, craziness with the mempool. We'll keep an eye on that. Hopefully we'll have some new, I don't know, some new mints or some new stuff. Who's working on more Bitcoin activity? We're trying to scale everything to L2s, but we need L1 activity to.
We got to keep those miners paid.
Exactly. Yeah, I think we're not halfway to the next halving yet, but we have. Well, actually, we have a nice visual here. We're just about a quarter of the way there to the next halving. So 2028, got a ways to go, I guess, until that happens. But yeah, as the next halving happens, the subsidy that miners get is going to go down to 1.563 BTC. So either the price of Bitcoin needs to go up to offset that reduction, or we need more transaction fees in the system for miners to earn. Time will tell what happens. Maybe a little bit of both would be my guess, but we'll see. Because it is a slower news week this week, I wanted to take a little bit more time than we normally do to dive into some of the state SBR bills that are currently in various stages. Before we do that, we always love to talk about some public company news. So Strategy has been participating, at least, in buying Bitcoin this week. They have acquired 22,048 BTC for $1.92 billion. They now hold 528,185 BTC. Shaylee, I know you're here and you shared a picture recently with the man himself, Michael Saylor. I would love to know how that came about, and tell us about that interaction.
Yeah, I mean, he's super cool. Like he was sitting there in a private room, and I saw him and I thought, okay, let me just go and introduce myself, chat with him a little bit. But then a bunch of people came in behind me and tried to like get in front and talk to him. I ended up taking pictures with like him and other people. And I was like, wait a second, it's my turn to talk. So then eventually I got back in and was able to chat with him. He was really nice.
Great photo. Like
Thanks.
the little very subtle Bitcoin shirt too on Saylor. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I don't look as cool as him. He has like a little Bitcoin symbol. I have a name tag.
Yeah, Saylor needs no name tag. He's just instantly recognizable.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, very cool. Very cool photo.
Just something interesting that Strategy is doing. They have their OP Next conference coming up in April to get some Bitcoin builders together, which is interesting. But also they're opening up their office space to builders in the community and miners. One of the miners that I know from the Stacks community that's also like a validator for Stacks, called Carbon Country, they are, potentially going to be working in that space. So it'll be interesting to see what groups of people come and collaborate with them.
Yeah, very cool. I feel like there's been a few things popping up, like Bitcoin friendly venues. There's also one up here in San Francisco, a Bitcoin Presidio, that I haven't been to yet, but there's been a few kind of higher profile interviews that have come out of there recently. Jack Dorsey was interviewed there recently, and there was like a lot of Bitcoin quotes that he was, that people were posting from that interview of him talking. And yeah, it's just cool to see like Bitcoin events happening outside of, just like the main like Bitcoin conference that happens each year. Nice to have a place for Bitcoiners to congregate and work together.
Absolutely. Yeah. And something Also very exciting that's happening in DC. PubKey is opening up this year
Oh,
Wow,
wow.
that's
I didn't
cool.
know that.
by June. It's going to be like a Bitcoin cultural center, sort of like a historic. I think they're trying to make it a little less grungy than the one in New York and more of like a museum-like thing for Bitcoin in DC, which is exciting.
Less of a dive bar, more of a museum.
But also a bar and sort of event space for
Yeah,
the crypto community here, which is pretty large.
that's really cool. I
Yeah.
hadn't heard of that. It's like breaking news.
Yeah.
Super cool. I imagine that will fit very well with a lot of the shifts happening in DC and everything.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I wanted to include this one. This is interesting because I was on Twitter and I was like scrolling through Twitter and I saw that Bitcoin Magazine actually posted about this. And that was where I first heard about it. And then I did a little bit more research. Genius Group, we've talked about Genius Group on the show a few times before. They are another public company that's been acquiring Bitcoin, but they have now been blocked from raising funds / buying Bitcoin by a New York court. This is a really weird story. And a couple minutes after I saw that Bitcoin Magazine posted about it, they deleted their post. And I'm not really sure why that is, because it's not an untrue story. Like they posted a PR about it and everything. But let's get into it. This is really weird. So Genius Group has been blocked from selling shares or raising funds, and specifically from using investor funds to buy Bitcoin by the United States District Court of New York. The legal action stems from this dispute that they have with Fat Brain AI and its executives who are accused of fraudulent activities. And Genius Group alleges that these executives have engaged in these fraudulent activities. And I don't know, it's really weird. So basically, it's not like they're specifically targeting Bitcoin, but because they're in this like fraud case, I guess, they're being forced by the courts to just like cease a lot of their operational things that they're doing, which includes like buying Bitcoin. And because they're a public company, they can't like raise funds. So they've actually been forced to sell some of the Bitcoin that they have been buying. So they've reduced their holdings from 440 to 430 to sustain operations. It's a really weird story. I was trying to figure out, like, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Like, if you are a company suing another company, why you would be forced to stop, certain operations. It's a really weird story. There's probably more to it than the news, let on maybe, but something to watch, I guess. If they have to end up selling 430 BTC, I'm sure Saylor will be happy to pick that up. That's kind of change. That's kind of change to them. So it won't really like dump the markets too much, but just a weird situation. We've mentioned them on the show a few times, so I wanted to make sure that we talked about this because it's really weird.
Yeah, I feel like there's definitely unknown things, probably some weird fraud and maybe like company structural change, like internal owners or something that make it weird. But that's funny, like a company arbitrage is going to be the new revenue generation for strategy.
Yeah, it's very strange. But yeah, I mean, there's buyers, so hopefully it won't impact the markets too much. So yeah, let's get into, we've talked about bitcoinlaws.io on the show. Really fantastic resource to track all the SBRs that are happening, strategic Bitcoin reserves, for those that are not in the know. There are currently 41 live SBRs in 21 states. When we look at the reserve race, there's 3 states, 4 bills that are really far ahead. So I wanted to talk about each one of them, and we can just go through kind of what the status is for each of them. Currently, Arizona is the furthest along. They actually have 2 different bills that are currently in progress. There's Arizona SB 1373 and Arizona SB 1025. So 1373 here. Let's look a little bit more info into it. Just to recap, so this bill 1373, it basically establishes a digital asset strategic reserve fund in Arizona, which will be managed by the state treasurer. This fund will consist of digital assets seized by the state and appropriated legislative funds, and can be held through secure custody solutions or exchange traded products, which is interesting because like most of the Bitcoin that's being seized is not in an ETF, right? It's like Bitcoin, the asset, but they included that in there anyway. State treasurer is limited to investing no more than 10% of the fund's total money in any fiscal year and may loan digital assets to generate additional returns if no financial risks are increased. And then this bill last moved on March 25th, which was just like a week or two ago, where the House Minority Caucus voted do pass. So that is the current status of this bill. When we go back to the other bill, SB 1025, in a similar place. This bill is a little bit different. So this bill allows public funds in Arizona, specifically in the state treasurer and retirement systems, to invest up to 10% of their available money in virtual currency with a specific focus on Bitcoin. And it's sort of predicated on the other bill passing. So it says if the US Treasury establishes a Bitcoin strategic reserve, these public funds would be permitted to store their virtual currency holdings in a secure segregated account within that reserve. And this bill defines virtual currency as a digital representation of value that serves as a medium of exchange, unit of account, and store of value, explicitly excludes US dollars and foreign currencies. So Arizona is, by far ahead. This last moved just a couple of days ago on April 1st. So I think this was the last SBR state bill that had some sort of action or activity on it, where the House Committee of the Whole also recommended do pass. So it's moving on to a few different, I guess there's a few different stages, that these have to go through. You can click through to go to the actual government websites to continue tracking those things. We also have Oklahoma and Texas here that are also in kind of various stages. Similar bills. The Oklahoma bill establishes, again, the Bitcoin Strategic Reserve Act, which allows the state treasurer of Oklahoma to invest public funds from the State General Fund, the Revenue Stabilization Fund, and Constitutional Reserve Fund in Bitcoin and other large market digital assets whose market capitalization is over 500 billion. And if you check, coin market cap, Bitcoin is the only one that is over 500 billion in market cap. So basically it's just Bitcoin. And they're also limited to 10% of the total funds for each year, basically for their fiscal policy. So Texas is pretty similar, I believe, as well. So yeah, that's kind of a high level overview, I guess, of where we are in the SBR race. I've heard also, just from listening to different podcasts and stuff like that, that a lot of people believe that we will likely get a SBR where a state actively purchases Bitcoin at the state level, before we see it at the federal level. So
wait, just going back to that. So similar to Arizona, are most of these state bills kind of reliant on the federal bill to pass, or could they move forward even if there isn't a federal level strategic Bitcoin reserve is the question.
They could. So the second Arizona bill was more specifically for certain pension funds and stuff to be able to do it.
Right.
So, in order for pension funds to be able to do it, basically the state would need to pass this bill,
Right.
I think.
Right.
But yeah, it's not, I think, necessary on the federal level for any kind of action. The states can kind of do this on their own.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, they should. Separate.
I'm wondering if this will...
The federal government just moves slower, right? You can get more things done at the state level quickly.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm wondering if some of these leading states will influence states like New York, who seem very behind on regulation and stuff. So I'm wondering if their adoption and sort of their blazing the path will allow other states to kind of loosen their reins on some of the restrictions around Bitcoin and crypto.
Yeah, no activity in New York. What is the West Coast doing? What's going on over here? There's a lot of black over here of no activity. Yeah, I'd love to see. There are some pretty crypto friendly senators and stuff in California as well. I know just because I live here. So yeah, hopefully we'll see some more on this side of the US in the future. pretty bleak on this side right now.
Yeah.
One interesting thing that I saw with the Arizona is in the first bill, they mentioned digital assets. And then in the second bill, they mentioned virtual currency. And virtual currency is not a term that I hear often working in this space, but it seems like a digital asset is, I've just been looking this up, and it's like issued by, a digital asset is issued by a government or almost like a centralized body, whereas virtual currency is operating independently. It's just not a term that I've heard, so I was like, what is a virtual currency? I don't know if you've heard much about this.
Virtual currency is like a term from, I feel like international organizations and sort of European organizations were using it maybe 6-7 years ago. And there was also this concept of a VASP, right? Like virtual asset service provider. So I've heard the term, I don't know why they don't say cryptocurrency. It's like that used to be a bad word, for a while, just the word cryptocurrency. And digital assets seems to be more of like a term. But they are going through some token taxonomy now at the federal level with the crypto task force. And I know David Sachs put out something around taxonomy. In like the executive order, there's a bit of taxonomy.
Yeah. I don't actually love the term cryptocurrency because I feel like most non, Bitcoin cryptos out there are not really trying to be a money. They're trying to, be some sort of gas token, utility token, not a money, right?
Right.
At my previous employer, we actually were told to never use the term cryptocurrency, kind of for that reason, because currencies are usually issued by governments or something like that, right? And we were instead told to say crypto assets, which I think is like a little bit more like broad and kind of general. I kind of prefer that personally. I don't know. I feel like we need a new word. Like for a while, everyone was saying Web3, and I feel like there was like backlash because there were so many things that people were attributing to Web3 that the term Web3 kind of lost its meaning in some ways. And now we're kind of back to using crypto, but I don't love the term crypto. I feel like we need a new term.
Yeah. I was annoyed by the whole Web3 term because I felt like it was sort of a term to rebrand crypto because crypto was seen as so bad. So I like digital asset, virtual currency. Like those are, all good. But I hear you on the currency bit because digital assets could mean so many things, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when I think of virtual currency, I think of like some in-game, like video game asset or something.
Exactly.
Like virtual currency is what you spend in World of Warcraft. Not what you do on the blockchain.
And then there's the concept of a token, right? There's like the utility token, the security token, and governance token, and there's so many.
Yeah, it'll certainly be very helpful for these things to actually be defined, for there to be some sort of market structure bill that defines what is a token, what is an asset, what is a currency, what are all these different things. It'll be nice to have that actual definition sort of codified. We'll see what happens there. In other news, we can talk a little bit about Circle. This week, Circle is filing for an IPO. So Circle is going to be the next big crypto company to go public. Congratulations to Circle. They are, of course, the issuers of USDC, and they have filed for an IPO under the ticker CRCL, Circle. They, as part of their kind of announcement, they had reported revenue and reserve income of $1.68 billion for 2024, compared to $1.45 billion in 2023. And net income from continuing operations was nearly $157 million in 2024 versus $271 million in the previous year. Went down a bit. I'm actually surprised to see. Well, I guess last year was still like a pretty big year for Bitcoin, especially or for crypto in general, just like in the later half of the year. But I'm surprised, to see not as much growth between like 2023 and 2024, because 2023 was still a pretty not great year for crypto, right? We really saw the growth last year in 2024, but I guess Circle had previously attempted to go public in 2022 through a SPAC, but they ended up terminating that deal. The CEO, Jeremy Allaire, wrote in a letter as part of this announcement that they said becoming a publicly traded corporation is a continuation of our desire to operate with the greatest transparency and accountability possible. And I do think something like a stablecoin totally makes sense, to have that transparency and that regulatory sort of oversight as a public company that you would get as a public company. So makes sense to me. And congrats to Circle. It'll be cool.
Yeah. They're expecting like a $5 billion valuation or something like that from the IPO.
I actually didn't see, maybe I missed it in the article of what price I guess they were targeting. I don't know.
I'm really happy for them because they're one of like the OGs of the concept of a decentralized sort of stablecoin, but with some centralized elements, right? They really have worked hard to expand USDC across different protocols, which is awesome. And like they're one of the biggest things for DeFi, right? It's like you need Tether and USDC for DeFi to like actually work. Those are the two main stablecoins. So I'm happy, especially because now I think that I saw news that like Fidelity and some others are getting in the stablecoin game. It's going to be much more competitive. So they need this to like continue to grow and keep up with the market that's coming.
It'll also be interesting. Oh, go ahead.
Kate.
I was going to say it'll be interesting to see sort of how the market does respond to this. Like if more people are going to now migrate over to USDC, I think Tether's around 60% of the stablecoin market, which is huge. But yeah, I'm wondering if this will kind of like shape the regulatory market, and if people feel more comfortable with that, that'll be an interesting play out.
Yeah, it's very cool that we'll have like a publicly traded stablecoin company, because there hasn't really been a great way to like bet on stablecoins, right? If you want to bet on Bitcoin, you buy Bitcoin, right? If you want to bet on stablecoins, you can't just buy stablecoins because they'll just stay at $1. So to be able to, invest in sort of the future of stablecoins through USDC, it's a really cool venue. And yeah, Circle has been around in this crypto space, in the Bitcoin space, for a very, very long time. They were, I'm pretty sure I'm remembering this correctly, in 2013, Circle started as a Bitcoin company. They weren't doing stablecoins at all yet. And they were the first company in the US that you could purchase Bitcoin with a debit card. I think before Coinbase even. Coinbase, I think, was the first, Coinbase was around first. You had to sort of like link a bank account and purchase Bitcoin that way. And I'm pretty sure I'm remembering correctly that, yeah, Circle was the first place that you could go and you could buy Bitcoin with a debit card. And I have some receipts to prove that I purchased Bitcoin back then, which is pretty cool. But yeah, Circle started as a Bitcoin company. And I remember, because I was purchasing Bitcoin through Circle, and I remember them eventually pivoting and being like, oh yeah, you can't buy Bitcoin through us anymore. We're going to like stop supporting Bitcoin. And we're doing this like other stablecoin thing now. And at the time, I thought that was like just so weird. I'm like, why would you need stablecoins? I just didn't get it. But they've done pretty good for themselves. So I think that was a pretty good move. But yeah, it's very interesting that they originally started as a Bitcoin company.
Yeah. And I mean, on Tether, I think they still prohibit US citizens from using it, which is why, even though they have the largest market share, I think Circle is still, for the US, like a bigger, utility.
Yeah, Tether's definitely the biggest stablecoin, but Circle USDC, I think, is still like in top 10 market cap, or maybe top 15. They're up there. They're the second biggest stablecoin out there behind Tether. Yeah.
Maybe Circle will come full circle and now add Bitcoin to their treasury.
Maybe. I mean, yeah, maybe they'll have to come full circle and like have a stable coin on Bitcoin in the future. That would be probably the ideal thing.
Bitcoin
We need stable coins on Bitcoin.
It's got to be a layer 2.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Hopefully soon. I guess we have AEUSDC, but it's a little different. Yeah, final story of the week is Fidelity Crypto expanding into IRAs. So they have had Fidelity Crypto for a while, where you can buy Bitcoin They support only 3 cryptos. It's Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Litecoin. And you can buy those 3 directly from Fidelity. And it's not an ETF. It's like the actual, like, well, it's paper, I guess, crypto, because you can't withdraw it from Fidelity, but you're actually buying the asset itself from them. And now they've expanded that product into IRAs. So if you have an IRA on Fidelity, you can now buy Bitcoin or Ethereum or Litecoin, but Bitcoin probably makes more sense to buy for like a longer term asset like that.
Why Litecoin? What is the incentive there?
I have no idea. Yeah, not many people are talking about Litecoin these days, I feel like, but
I'm surprised like it's still around. I mean, I don't know anyone who uses it.
Yeah, I don't either. I've met more people at events that are using Ethereum Classic than Litecoin.
Yeah.
Really? Ethereum Classic?
Because Ethereum Classic is still proof of work. So, yeah.
Interesting.
But, yeah. But I think that kind of wraps up the show. That's all the news that I have for the week. Anything else that I might have missed that you guys saw this week?
To bring it back to tariffs, I saw a tweet from Michael Saylor that said Bitcoin cannot be tariffed. So I guess maybe that's a good place to leave it.
Strong tweet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw that one too. Yeah, that was a good one. Cool. Well, we will see everybody next week. Thank you guys for tuning in. Have a great weekend. Happy Friday. Yeah, just HODL, I guess. And we'll end it there.
Happy Friday.
Awesome. See you guys.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Bye. Thank you for listening. We record Good for Bitcoin live every Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time on X. Please follow us at Trust Machines Co. if you would like to listen and engage with us live. Visit us at trustmachines.co for all the latest Bitcoin news. We'll see you next week.